Hey guys, this is Ruben on Connection Loop. This is our podcast for all things kind of marvelous and interesting. Today I've got a super interesting dude. His name is Jonaed, and he's going to talk about a couple of things. The first thing that kind of grabbed me right off the bat was the fact that his company is called No Degree, and I wanted to kind of understand that, and I figured I'd kind of wait to record the conversation to really understand what that means. But let's get into it, man. What's going on with you?
So, I'll keep it simple. It's in the name. So, I own nodegree.com and I help people without college degrees find jobs. And a lot of that, there's a lot of content around that. I launched my podcast, a couple of weeks ago called the No Degree Podcast. But my goal is to help those without college degrees because I talk to so many people without college degrees and they're like, I don't know what to do. And then if you tell someone I'm not going to college, they're like, what are you going to do? Are you just going to flip burgers for the rest of your life? Are you going to have a hard life? And it's like, there's so many things you can do. It's just something you wouldn't think of. Like no one grows up and says, I want to be a claims adjuster or, hey, I want to work in SMS marketing or, a lot of people work in random things that you've never heard about, but they make good money. So I kind of want to share the stories and kind of say, hey, this is a viable career and this is how you would go about entering this career.
I mean, it's such a massive and yet niche audience.
Yeah.
And it's such an important problem that I think needs to be solved because, I mean, let's just face it. Look, I'm in sales, I'm in marketing, I'm in tech.
Yeah.
A lot of the great people in all of those industries, they didn't go to college. They started and they dropped out, or they just never went. They have the hustle life and they went through life and they learned, on the road and in the game and, doing things. I think it's a tremendous cause that you have.
Yeah.
What inspired you?
You know Reddit, right? So I was on Reddit. This was like 2013. So I was on Reddit and someone asked a question. For those of you without college degrees who make over six figures, what do you do and how'd you get the job? And it was like, I'm a claims adjuster. I repair elevators. I'm a surveyor. I operate this random vehicle. I have this certification. And it was like, how'd you get the job? Oh, my cousin, my uncle, my brother, my friend from school. He told me I was at the right place, right time. And then I was like, why can't I be that friend? Right? And college was, that was 2013. College was still expensive then, and now it's just astronomical. So I was like, why can't I be that resource? And you saw that all these people were, if they didn't go down that route, they would have sort of had hard lives, but they kind of got this lucky break. And I was like, that's sort of unfair because all these jobs are out there and there's a lack of transparency. There's a lack of availability because a lot of these sites to even search a job, you obviously Google exists and there's a search engine, but a search engine is only as powerful as the user behind it. If you don't know what to search, you'll never find it, right? Because that's how Google works. You have to search for something. So if you don't know that a claims adjuster is a job you would like, you'd never even search it. So I wanted to introduce people to all different types of careers. And then so they could figure out like, hey, you know what? This is me. This is not me. I could do this or my friend could do this.
You have a pretty impressive degree, though. It's not like you are trying to help people that potentially a problem that you've had in your life. You went to Columbia. You got a master's from Columbia. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, you did. That's an expensive school.
Yeah.
Especially being in New York.
Yeah, fortunately, I grew up in New York City, so I didn't have to pay. Like, I was a poor kid in Columbia, so it was also an eye-opening experience. And I tell people say, how can you sort of have this company? You have a master's degree. And I tell people, look, I was always good in school. School came easier to me than most people. When I went to college, like, there were a lot of classes, I was either the top student or a top three. Right. And it's not like I didn't study. Right. In college, I did study. But, there were some classes like I could walk in and I could pretty much not do anything and I'll still be in the top 10% of the class. But I was good in school. But not everybody's good in school. Not everybody has that thing come easy for them. Like you have some people, they'll pick up a basketball and they'll be better than someone who's been, at it every day. And that's just life. And I saw that people were stigmatized for not being good at school. So I saw that who the system helped, but there were a lot of people who were failed by the system. Like if you're not good in school, it doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're unmotivated. Because oftentimes you'll say, why would I hire someone without a college degree who's unmotivated? And they assign all these negative qualities. And it's like, go to any college campus. Tell me those kids in Thursday night are really motivated, right? The kids who are having these crazy parties. Right? Are those kids really motivated? They're just having a good time on their parents' dime, the loans that they're taking out. So that was sort of my motivation in that just because I went to school and I did good, the best lessons in life, I tell everyone, the most important lessons in life, you don't learn in the classroom. And even though I did go to school, all the stuff, what really makes me are the things I learned outside the classroom. Because I work corporate, but I wasn't happy, right? I'm not a 9 to 5 person. Like I woke up at 11 a.m. today and I only woke up because someone called me for a meeting, right? I'm not a morning person and I'm not the traditional person. And a lot of the skills I had, like I was an actuary. And the fact is, if you're a sociable person, you're out there, you're keeping in touch, your bosses don't care about that, right? Whereas like I wanted to do something that really impacted people's lives. I wanted to sort of start something like the no degree movement where it changed people, because now I work with people and they're like, hey man, thanks, you helped me get this job. Hey man, thanks, you guided me in the right direction. Now I actually have hope. So it's like, you don't learn that in school.
So what would you say the moment was, or the multiple experiences that you had where you woke up and you said, hey, that's the segment that I want to help. Those are the people that I really want to help. Was there a person? Was there a story? Was there an experience?
So when I read that Reddit thread, I was like, yo, this is my lottery ticket. Like, I'm going to be rich. When you have this idea, you're like, yeah, I'm going to be rich and all that. I always enjoyed helping people. And I started researching. I was like, look, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do this. And I could do so many things with this. And, the first few years, there was a bunch of guys in the basement just figuring things out. I'm pretty sure you've been there where you're hashing out ideas. You're like, oh, we should do it this way. No, we should do it. And you pivot, you do this and that. And then as I started going into it, and I kind of saw like schools are just so freaking expensive. It's like ridiculous, and there's some people who think, well, you earn more, so therefore it's worth the money. And it's like, so what? There's a $10 book you can buy that could potentially earn you $500,000. That doesn't mean that book should be priced at $400,000 or it's a good buy at $400,000. And if you look at, like the school system and you really look at it, like college specifically, not like high school and below, because, that's actually affordable. All colleges are the same price. You take like the worst private school, it still costs just as much or close to Harvard. And think about it. Imagine if a Toyota Camry costs as much as Rolls Royce. And that's what it is in the college market. They charge based on the ability for the kids to buy, right? So they know, oh, kids can borrow up to $50,000. We'll charge $50,000. That's what the price is based on. It's not based on how much they're putting in, because colleges were a tenth of the price before and they were actually higher quality and they were able to get by. It's not like, hey, you have a product and it costs $10,000, so therefore you have to price it at least $10,000. College is not like that. It's not like professors are multimillionaires, right? Sometimes they use graduate students to teach some classes, right? So it's like all these factors. And if you look at a college campus, I tell people colleges are in the business of education. Go to any college campus, perpetual construction, new rec center, new this, and who's paying it? And after you graduate, they ask alumni donations. They ask this and that. And it's like, come on, you guys don't have enough money? You're asking alumni donation from someone who took out well over 50 to 100K? It's like, how can they afford that?
It's a real issue, man. I completely connect to that. I went through the whole process up until graduate school, and I would think to myself, here I am. I actually have a degree in entrepreneurship, which is the
it's kind of
biggest
funny.
oxymoron.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's like, instead of spending 2 years getting a degree in entrepreneurship, you should probably go try to start a business, which of course I was doing when I was in school and learning in the process. But it is an oxymoron. But I think one of my key takeaways here is that technology is solving so many aspects of education. And it effectively is democratizing it, because with a presentation, with a video, with some sort of a story that could be told by some sort of a teacher and then distributed through some platform, it's incredibly scalable. And it's incredibly efficient. Why don't I see more of that? I see a bunch of, online degrees and I see the ads, but why isn't that a big thing? Is it a profitability thing?
I think it's that people have to sort of understand how to structure it properly, because it's not easy producing you produce content. It's not easy producing content. And then what happens is a lot of people sometimes gatekeep that content because they have to, they charge for it. But, it's just you have to do a little more research. Like Udemy is great and there's so many online courses. And I think like people just have to be good at filtering them. And, that was one of the motivations for launching my podcast, is like one of the episodes, episode 3, is how to prepare for an interview. Because I was like, look, I want to release as much content for free as possible. So that, look, I have other ways of making money. I want to get the content away from free, because the employers I make money off the employers. I make money from other aspects. And I think the fact is that creating content is not easy. And then it has to be part of your overall mix. And I think that's not easy for a lot of people. If all you do is create content, unfortunately, you have to monetize it some way. Right. But if you can use a content as part of your overall strategy, and a lot of people are not very strategic in business. So it's like, that's sort of where I come in play. It's like all the content on my site is free. Right. I generally recommend free courses, free things. Or if I do recommend a book, I'll make sure it's like 10 to 20 bucks. I'm not going to recommend something that's like 500 to $1,000 unless it's something that's going to guarantee you a salary very quickly.
That makes sense. So with respect to your content, what kind of stuff are you working on? Obviously, you got a podcast, which is
Yeah.
great. What other types of content are you producing?
Just written content, so I'll go into, if you check out nodegree.com, I'll have content on like welder and I'll break down. It's just simplistic. So someone who has no idea what a welder is can go to that article and figure out, what does a welder do? What's the day-to-day like? What are the skills required? Do you require certification? Who's it good for? Because I'm real with people. I'll tell people, hey, if you like working with your hands, if you like this is a great job for you. And I'll say, Khan, sometimes you'll have long days, you'll work on construction sites. So if you have a dust allergy, this job's gonna suck. So that way people can figure out like, oh, I like working with my hands. Oh no, you know what? I got a bad back. This isn't for me. So that's sort of how I go. So I go into like 911 dispatcher, like EMT, security guards, all that stuff. And then I'll go into more the tech side. Like, how do you become like, hey, how do you become a cybersecurity? How do you work in cybersecurity? What certifications do you need? And I'll really break it down. Like, okay, you need the certification. It takes about 2 to 3 months, because a lot of times once people have the idea and you equip them with the beginning knowledge, then you can sort of really dig deep. And that's why I launched a podcast where I'll interview someone who's a security guard. I'll interview someone who's a welder, and then they can get a deeper knowledge. And then I'll link to books on how to become a welder. So that way my site is a starting point. And then look, if they want, they can go buy some books, they can listen to podcasts. And then I tell them, look, check out the American Welding Society. Look, I can't specialize in everything, but I can lead people in the right direction. And that's my goal with No Degree.
So how can people do a better job to put themselves out there to get their foot in the door, to get a step ahead of all the competition? Are we going into this with the assumption that someone without a degree has to do something special or different or better than people with degrees, or should we kind of lose that assumption?
No, unfortunately, that is a very accurate assumption. In some industries, if you go into any of the trades, they don't care about your degree. They're like, look, what have you done? What have you built? Right? Because you have something tangible. All right. In certain industry, fortunately tech is very forgiving, because tech is like, can you code? Can you do this? Do you have the certification? That shows your level of competency. For other areas like finance, forget it. It's an old boys club, right? All these people who go to Harvard and all these other schools, they sort of have to justify why they went to those schools, and therefore they only hire because they think a certain way. But sales, like, you don't, like, it's like, look, if you can sell, you have numbers base, it works. But yeah, there are certain things, and I see it all the time. It depends by company. Some companies don't care, and some companies you really have to prove yourself. And it's sad, but I think the tides are changing, and now a lot of the big companies are dropping the requirement, and that's the first step. First, the conversation's being had, right? It's a conversation everywhere you go. 99% of people say, hey, they love what I'm doing. Even people with degrees, they say they love what I'm doing. 1% of people, will be sort of confrontational, but that's anything. There's never anything that 100% of people agree on. Even if you told someone, hey, I'm giving away free money, no strings attached, there's one person like, I don't believe in getting free money, blah, 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 right? It's just no matter what,
Of
not
course.
everyone will be on the same page.
We talk a lot about how people can pitch themselves and how people can leverage video
Yeah.
to get in front of. Actually, just yesterday, it's so interesting because just yesterday we wrote a blog post and then started the beginning of like a video that we're actually producing on how video can be used for recruiting from both perspectives, recruiting someone, but then also, job seekers, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I am always curious about, and sometimes I get a little bit frustrated about this, why they don't use video to capture themselves, to do a screen video of their resume, to go through some
Yeah.
portfolio piece, and then send that to a prospective, employer candidate. Why don't more people do that? Why are they living in a text-based email situation? Here's my email, here's my resume. Why don't they put their foot forward and use video? I always wonder this.
Because honestly, they don't know. As simple as that. It's like email is commonplace, right? You're so used to sending email. I'm pretty sure if you told someone, hey, if you send a video to a recruiter introducing yourself, you have a much higher shot, people would do it. But also, other than that, people just don't know. There is a comfort level, right? Getting on video isn't easy for a lot of people, especially like females. They need to be in makeup. They need to be a certain thing. Maybe they need to do hair. Even males, like, you got to be in a certain mood. And it's also not easy doing video, right? Not in the sense that if you've never done video, it's very intimidating, right? So I think that's sort of why it's not the norm. People also don't know how to do video. You always hear the saying that we're our own worst critics. Like, see, the thing is, I'm not a perfectionist. I'll post videos. But even when I watch it, I was like, if I were not confident, I'm going to see I'm twitching, I'm blinking, I'm not looking straight at the camera. So I think that's one factor. What I tell people, go meet people in person. Because the thing is, that's your cover letter. When you go and you meet someone in person and you introduce yourself, there are very few job seekers who I come across. Like, I was at a networking event yesterday. There were like hundreds of people. Only like 5 people were looking for work. If you're one of those 5 people and you were in the room and someone was hiring, you actually have a shot. Instead of applying online, You can say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is my motivation. And it's a casual conversation. It's not a nerve-wracking interview. It's a casual conversation where you can explain to them. They can tell you what they're looking for. And look, even if they're not hiring, people always know someone who's hiring. So I tell people, look, if it's not video, get in person. Because how many emails do recruiters or people get a day? How many applications do they get? Right? A lot. How many people actually show up at an event they're going to?
Real life is,
Yeah.
there's nothing better than that. You're 100% correct. If you can find that situation, always recommend it. It's hard
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
Going to
it is
networking
tough.
events,
Yeah,
sometimes they're expensive. A lot of these conferences, these
yeah, they're
conferences get
expensive.
crazy expensive.
Dude, it's like,
I've seen conferences for $1,000 for one day.
yeah, I've seen it. You know what I tell people about networking is that go to one event. When you go to one event, because people who go to networking events go to other networking events.
Yes.
Once you go to one event, they'll say, hey, you know what? There's this event that's good for you. You should check it out. I started networking this year actively, right? These type of events. From that, they tell me, oh, I'm part of this, I'm part of that. And you'd be surprised there are a lot that are free. There are these volunteer organizations that mentor people. There are these other organizations. And through that, you just meet so many people who are doing amazing things who are definitely willing to help you out.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct, man. It's all about getting out there, and
Yeah.
it's a numbers game. It's such
Yeah,
a numbers game in so many ways, And I think the power of networking is the network effect,
it is.
because and I think that I personally have invested a lot of time, a lot of resources into kind of my own kind of personal
Yeah.
network, and it's an investment. And I think one of the things that people don't realize is that it's a very long-term investment. You don't
It
get
is.
ROI on it overnight. 6 months to 2 years, but
Yeah.
once you start actually investing into it, it's amazing what you can do. I've heard really successful people say, I'll never worry about being unemployed. I'll never worry
Yeah.
about going broke, because I always have my network to be able to put in a call to be able to,
Yeah.
make an arrangement with, so that I'm good and I'm set
Yeah.
up. And it's a life investment.
Yeah. And 100%, like a lot of people want this tree in their backyard. Let's say you want this huge tree in your backyard, but it's like it takes 20 years to grow that tree. And that's what networking is. And you have to water that tree, you have to watch it, you have to protect it, you have to nurture it. Same thing as network. And you want the fruits of the tree. It takes time, right? You don't just, like I said, a lot of people will go to one or two events and they'll be like, oh, networking doesn't work. There are some people who I've met 2-3 years ago who are sort of now using me for business. And it's like, had I not done it, had I not been in contact with them, had I not watered that relationship, it wouldn't have happened. And it's like, I'm in that position where it's like, I know more about the lives of the people from a company I worked 3 companies ago. So it's been well over 2 years since I worked at that company than people within that own company. Why? Because I actually say, hey, what's up? I'll stop by the office. Meanwhile, the person who sits a cubicle 50 feet away doesn't do that. And it's like, look, in anything in life, whether you have a degree or not, you have to put in the work. You have to do the things that other people are not doing. You have to step out of your comfort zone in order to be like this. And it's like, I'm fortunate enough. Let's say my business fails, right? I know that I can make a couple of phone calls like, hey, do you have any intros? And just like that, I know I won't have to go through the gruesome process of a regular job search because it's emotionally draining. It's a numbers game and it sucks.
Yeah, so what do you recommend for folks right now? I mean, if someone is in a situation, they're looking for a gig, they're looking for a job, what's like your checklist? What's your to-do list that they should start doing? Obviously, networking, get themselves out there.
Yeah, networking. So keep themselves out there, and it's like be real. If you're like an introvert, just go one event a week and just aim to talk to 2 people. I'm not gonna tell an introvert, oh yeah, go to 5 networking events and talk to 50 people at each event. That's just recipe for failure. Make sure your resume is on point. So Google ATS resumes because the ATS is the applicant tracking systems. And they have certain rules. Like you have to structure your resume a certain way. You can't have certain symbols. A lot of people are doing colors and all these fancy resumes. But an ATS is like most companies use the same ATS system. And these fancy resumes don't make the cut. So first, your resume has to actually pass the filter. I get so many resumes and 90% of them are garbage. And look, I suck at that stuff. But go on Google, type in ATS resume format, take that format. You don't have to create your own format. Just do that. Get someone to help you with your resume. And I tell people it's a numbers game. Apply to as many, like when you're looking for a job seeking is your job. I tell people, yeah, I've been looking for a job for months. And it's like, all right, how many do you apply? 1 a day. It's like, come on, I went to an Ivy League school. I applied to 100 jobs. I got called back interviews for like 3 to 5. And I'm a great candidate. And I only apply for roles that made sense for me. Right. So it's like if someone like me is struggling, I know other people are struggling. And it's like The other factor is a lot of people don't know the talents that they have. A lot of people think like, I talk to so many people, they're like, oh, I worked in this industry. How can I transfer? It's like, well, don't you have your communication skills? Don't you have sales skills? Didn't you work in a team? Didn't you work with other people? Didn't you manage people? Didn't you deal with conflict? Didn't you deal with vendors, bosses, other stakeholders? And they're like, yeah. So I was like, what's so different about this other job? Maybe you just need to pick up this one skill. And when you present, you're coming from a unique experience. Like this company deals with $10 million deals. In your previous industry, you dealt with $20 million deals. So it's like you actually are more qualified than a typical candidate. So a lot of people have to know how to position themselves. And it's hard because it's hard to sell yourself, right? Because a lot of people are told that, oh no, you got to be humble. You can't put yourself out there. And a lot of people are not confident. So it's like pick up that confidence, believe in yourself, know what you have and know what you bring to the table. Because it's like, there's so many people who are working jobs who are not qualified for it. So if an unqualified person can work a job, a qualified person can definitely run circles around them.
So you mentioned confidence. We talk about that a lot. I explore this topic a lot because to your earlier point, it does take confidence to do video and it does take confidence to put yourself out there. It's a big important part of just being presentable and being approachable. If people struggle with that, what is your recommendation for them? How can people gain confidence?
Okay, so what I tell people is they have to change how they view confidence. Sometimes people view confidence as something as people have or don't have. Confidence is a skill, and just like any skill, it can be worked on. You look at the best people who are doing anything. Yes, LeBron James is good at basketball, but he didn't wake up being LeBron James, right? He does have many natural gifts, but he put in the work. He went to practice. He built on it. He failed. He missed shots. Same thing. Confidence is a skill. So you build on it. So first, you're uncomfortable doing video. Maybe record a video where you don't post it. Just record a video. Take baby steps. I tell people always baby steps because yes, you have to step out of your comfort zone, but I tell people just step a little outside your comfort zone. Don't go too much outside your comfort zone. It's a recipe for disaster and you're like, I'll never do this again. So let's say you're not confident. Go present to 2 of your friends, right? I tell people for interviewing, practice saying your answers out loud, right? Even record yourself saying your answers out loud. Because that way, when you walk into an interview, if that's not the first time you're saying that answer, if that's not the first time you hear that question, you're going to sound more natural. And it's like an oxymoron that I have a LinkedIn Live show, and a lot of people say, oh, you're so natural. What a lot of people don't get is I've been part of Toastmasters, a public speaking organization, for 5 years. I've had hundreds of conversations. I've worked on that. I've messed up, and I've been put on the spot. And it's only because I've done so much that I come across as natural on camera. Same thing. It's like it took time to build the confidence. I didn't start out presenting to audiences of 100, 200. I started out presenting to like 10 to 20 people. I got comfortable with that. Our club grew. I presented to bigger audiences. So I tell people confidence is a skill and just work on it. Baby steps, just work on it a little every week and you'd be surprised at how far you come across, how much progress you make in 2-3 months to a year. And it's a lifelong journey that you're always going back and forth. And sometimes you'll have good days, sometimes you'll have bad days, but look at the overall trend and, work on that progress.
This reminds me of this paradox that I've explored a little bit, which is that, our eyes are looking out. Our ears are looking out. Our mouth is looking out. The only thing that's actually inward inside of us is our brain, which you can't see, which is not visible. So it's so interesting because, here we are not able to view ourselves. Not able to look in the mirror, not able to give ourselves feedback and to criticize, to self-criticize. Only is it when you hit record, have a video on your hard drive, on your phone, look into a mirror. That's the only time that you can actually, self-criticize. And, I think it's such an important thing for us to do. I did exactly what you're saying to build my confidence for video. That was my hack. My hack was I recorded videos while I was driving. I didn't look at the camera. I was safe. I was looking at the road, but I would just record myself talking. And what that allowed me to do is that it allowed me to find my voice. And it allowed me to find my confidence, but it also allowed me to understand how I communicate, what my filler words are. Do I say yes? Do I say do I say basically? And to kind of work on those and then figure out when it's appropriate, but then when it's not, and when it's superfluous, and when it's just me thinking. And that process was really important to me. And now, networking, recording videos, shaking hands, getting myself out there, it's a daily routine. And it's incremental in nature, but it's been a tremendous experience for me to actually invest in that.
Like I tell people join Toastmasters. It's very cheap, right? For 6 months, the fee is like $45. It's a good way to step outside your comfort zone. And the fact is, you don't have to speak right away. Just watch others speak. Just talk to someone after the meeting. Start small. And I've seen people grow. Like, I've seen people cry during their first speech because they legit had like anxiety. You know, they had a legitimate, like, almost phobia of public speaking. And I've seen them next speech, they don't cry. They're on the verge of crying. And I've seen people over years, like I remember this girl, she presented, she was tearing during a presentation in class. And now she, giving speeches. And it all started with that one, right? Getting outside your comfort zone and starting. So it's like, find a way where you can sort of get up there and speak. Because it's practice, right? If you don't get in front of people speaking, you lose it. And you look at all these professional speakers, they've done it for so long, or they're practicing for hours and hours, right? It's not like they just go up there and say, hey, I'm going to wing this, right? It just doesn't happen. So don't be intimidated by people who are good, because people who are good have been practicing it. It's not that they were just born good. And I think once people understand that, it's a lot easier for people to come in terms with themselves. And like you said, finding the voice. Find your voice. Once you find your voice, once you understand your style, like the style that works for you, probably not going to work for me. And the style that works for me is not going to be the style that works for you. And it's like, know how to filter advice. Because a lot of people say, you have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. And it's like, I break the rules all the time. But it works because it's authentic and genuine for me.
That's the key right there. If we can find our voice, what's comfortable for us, something that we're confident in, something that we can lean into, something where we don't feel like we have to pretend to be someone else.
Yeah.
That's the most liberating thing, man. Because what I see people do a lot is that they see someone on the internet, they see someone on LinkedIn or YouTube, and they say, I want to be like that person.
Yeah.
And they buy the clothes and they get the get up and they start talking like them and they get the vibe, and it's not coming from a real place.
Yeah.
And I think there's this kind of a secondary component to that, which is that if you jump in and you try to emulate someone else, then you expect to get the same type of results. And that's where all the craziness happens, because it's actually a self-fulfilled prophecy of failure, because you go in saying, I'm going to do this. It works for someone else. I'm going to expect to get the same results. You don't get the results. You get discouraged. You lose your confidence. You stop doing that. And then now you're in actually the same or a worse place. And it's a terrible place. Whereas to your point, start communicating with one person in mind.
Yeah, that's the easiest way.
Who's that person?
Yeah. And like you said, you got to be yourself. And look, to be yourself, you are the culmination of many people. So you could say, I really admired this part of this guy, so I want to take this thing from this guy. So you're going to take 10 or 20 things from 10 or 20 people, you're each going to take one or two things from them. So I would say kind of think of it like that. But yeah, you can't be somebody else because it's not authentic and people are going to be like, what? And it's exhausting too. It's not sustainable. You're going to burn out, or eventually it's like the 10 minutes people see a video of you backstage or something like that. They're gonna be like, what? That's him, right? Or that's her.
Well, that's why it's so important to, I did stand-up comedy once.
Oh, dude, that's tough.
It was hard. Everyone needs to do stand-up comedy. Actually, The reason why I did it was because I said years ago, a decade ago, I was like, hey, listen, I want to do more public speaking. I want to get more confidence when I communicate, business, networking, stages. And they said, do stand-up. And I said, what? Do stand-up. And I said, why? And they said, because you're on a stage. And typically, if you're going to do stand-up, you're at an open mic, which is all comedians, and they don't laugh at other people's jokes because guess what? They've heard them all, and they're there for business, right? They're there kind of to not be entertained, but just to be, to get their 2-3 minutes. So you get this harsh audience, and you got to come up with something, either improv or something that's scripted. And that experience for me, it changed my life. This was at the Laugh Factory. I recorded the whole thing. I put a YouTube video about it. But that was a really important thing for me to be able to say, you know what? This is who I am. I'm not going to try to pretend to be someone else. I'm going to laugh at myself before anyone else does.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try to fake it. This is what my office looks like, and this is what my hair looks like, and this is what my jacket looks like with this Gorillaz t-shirt. That's me.
I like it.
Not. Oh, yeah. So, that's where I landed on that. But, I think the other thing, though, is that it's a ritual.
Yeah.
And if you don't get to that daily ritual, you're done,
Yeah. And I've seen it happen where like people, they've been on the public speaking circuit, they had a lot and they stop. And then they're not the same when they go back. Like it's not, just like, you stop practicing a sport, you stop doing it. When you go back, yes, you can pick it up faster than you did before, but you still have a rust period. So it's like, you got to keep improving. You got to keep exercising that muscle because it's like, you don't hit the gym for a year. No matter if you're the world's strongest man, you're going to lose.
There's this great interview with Jerry Seinfeld and Eddie Murphy. It's such a good one. The host asks Eddie Murphy, hey, are you ever going to get back on stage? Because, Eddie Murphy back in the 80s, he was the man.
Yeah, he was the man.
Like, it was insane. It was so good. But, Jerry, I think, asked him, hey, are you going to get back on stage? And And the answer effectively was basically no. I wonder, and I think that that's changed since.
Yeah.
I've gotten some inklings about this. I feel like
Yeah.
Eddie's making a comeback, but
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what that's going to be like because it's been a while since he's been
Yeah.
on a stage. Extremely produced. He went from rated
Yeah.
R movies and now all within the last
Yeah.
10, 15 years, all like PG-13 kind of family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is that going to look like for him? Is he going to go back to rated R
Yeah.
Eddie or is he going to be family Eddie?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. I'm
no.
curious.
And it's tough because even Jerry, you bring up Jerry Seinfeld. After he did Seinfeld, right, and the show was success and it ended, he did one comedy routine, right? And he said it flopped. Like Jerry Seinfeld, right? This funny guy who, one of the best and most famous comedians out there, he flopped because he didn't practice. He said when he got back on the circuit, he got booed and all that stuff. And look, if that can happen to someone who's up there, right, in the top 0.1%, it can happen to anyone. So it's like, yeah, you got to keep at it. Use it or you lose it. It's just how it is, and for everyone.
Yeah, man. I mean, these people, these greats, they're always they're maniacal about practicing their
Yeah.
craft. They're always at it. They're always writing. They have a journal,
Yeah.
Ideas. It's funny. My sister randomly met Russell Peters and they became friends. So
That's cool.
So she actually invited Russell to our house. I wasn't there, but he was kind of playing carom board with my mom, and there's this funny video.
This is awesome.
Yeah, but it was funny because he was cracking jokes.
Yeah.
And he's figuring out what works and what doesn't work, so that when he's eventually on stage or he's doing his next Netflix special or at the Apollo, whatever it is, he says, you know what, that joke worked.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that MSG. All those jokes were performed many times before, and oftentimes they started in basement comedy clubs. Like you said, they practice on their friends. They practice. Even look, when I talk and right, because I give presentations, I look at other presentations. I see, you know what? This person did that well. This person did that well. I could incorporate that a little in my style this way. Or you know what? I think I could improve upon that. And even when I'm talking to people, I'm careful about the words I use. I observe myself. I'm good enough in the sense that I'm not a harsh critic. I can give myself a good amount of criticism. That's healthy, right? Not so much that's going to stop me from doing what I do, but I can be honest with myself. And, right, that's what you have to do to be great. You have to know what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you can improve, and, you're constantly working at it.
So what was the experience of Toastmasters for you?
Dude, it was good because I was the first president at Columbia University Toastmasters. And I ran unopposed, so I'm not going to say like I ran against 10 people. I was the only one that ran. And, the first few months, it was good because the semester. Now, I'm going to tell you, Ivy League students don't care about public speaking. If we kept the club only to Columbia students, it would have died. Students only care about parting and grades. They don't care about, they're not long-term. They only care about what's in front of them. So during the summer, it was tough. I had a meeting. Dude, it was 4 people. One of them was my nephew, who was 6 years old at the time. And, but the thing is, it was like we had so many meetings where it was like it was a growing club, right? Now we're the second largest club in North America. But before that, for the first few years, it was like I had to be there because if I wasn't there, the club was going to die. I was the string that kept everything together. There were times I didn't want to go, but I was like, look, I got to go because what happened? Let's say we had only one person sign up to speak. That person dropped. Guess what? I had to give a speech that I sort of had in my head, and I had to give it on the spot. There were meetings where I had 4 to 5 roles. Like I would be the Toastmaster. I'd give a speech. I'd evaluate another speech. I'd evaluate the meetings. But that's what got me so good because it forced me, and I was never prepared. Like I couldn't prepare because I never knew who's going to drop out. I never knew what was needed. So that was a great experience for me. And it's like, it really pushed me. And, that's how I got good because it's like when you physically can't prepare for something, but you have to do it, you're just forced to react. You're forced to get better at it. And it's just over time. And then eventually the club it grew. We didn't have that as much. And that was when I could actually take a step back. And then I was able to focus on giving my speeches and doing other aspects. So that's why it was a really eye-opening experience. And it was just the feedback people gave, just like seeing the feedback like, hey, you do this. Like when I don't practice public speaking, my word is right. I say that at the end of every sentence, like, right. And I think my girlfriend caught this yesterday. I was on the phone with someone. She was like, every time I ask a question, I say question. So I was like, you got to mix it up. So I say question. What do you think about this? So because you can't really hear yourself do it because you're just not thinking. You're just saying it straight. And that's what really gets you. So I would highly recommend anyone, even if it's not permanent, just go check it out. 6 months to a year. I think now I'm at the point where it's like, I have my LinkedIn Live show. I have that. So people give me feedback through other means, but it's a great way to start public speaking.
So here's what I'd love to get from you right now. Assume that I've given you some presentation in this call here. And first of all, I want to get some harsh criticism. What would you
Yeah.
do? What would you say to me? Am I using filler words? Am I using my hands too much? And then
So
secondly, give me the crash course.
I wouldn't want to give harsh criticism. I'd want to give fair criticism. And the beauty of Toastmasters is for most people, they give the right amount of criticism. For someone who's giving their first speech, I'm not going to evaluate it like someone who's been speaking for 5 years. And the fact is, you want to give different feedback. Someone who's more advanced is looking for more subtle things like vocal variety, word choice, specific types of eye contact, hand gestures, how they move around on stage. Someone who's giving their first speech, you want to talk about what they're good at and hey, pointing out like, you know what, you tend to move your hands or when you're talking in a certain direction, you're looking down. That's the type of feedback you'd give to a first person. I wouldn't want to give really harsh feedback just because it's like, it's demoralizing, right? It's like, you don't want to do that to someone because look, they're doing something that most people are afraid of. They're out there trying to improve themselves. So why rip them apart, right? Because
Yeah.
they'll remember that. They'll never want to do it again. Like, oh, I'm so terrible. So it's like, so the crash course is in Toastmasters, you have the president introduces the meeting. You have someone called a Toastmaster, and they're the one who has the agenda, and they'll introduce the speaker, they'll introduce the next role, they'll guide the meeting. Then you have speakers, and speakers give speeches, and their speeches are timed. So the timer, let's say you're supposed to give a 6-minute speech. 4 to 6 minutes. At 4 minutes, they'll show a green card. 5 minutes, yellow card. 6 minutes, red card because timing is very important. I'm pretty sure you've been to conferences and speakers who go over suck. It's annoying. It ruins the rest of the day. It pushes out the speaker back. It always cuts into lunch. It always cuts into the break. You know, timing is important. Then they have someone who counts your filler words, the ahs, ums, you knows, the so's. And the way we do it at my club is someone has more than 5 of a certain one. Like you said, you know more than 5 times. We won't say, oh, you said you know 32 times. We'll say he said it more than 5 times. And if that specific person wants to ask how many times did I say it, we'll give the feedback. Then we have the grammarian, any grammatical errors that people make, they'll point it out. Most of the time, most people don't have them. So they'll say, hey, you know what? It was beautiful the way you combined these words or this level, this alliteration you use or this metaphor was powerful. Then they have something called table topics. And table topics is a part of the club. They have someone called the table topics master and they have come up with a list of questions. Sometimes there'll be a theme for the tape. So I guess Halloween just passed. So Halloween would be the theme, like scary. And they'll ask questions. So they'll ask, what was the scariest thing that ever happened to you? And you have to talk about it for at least 1 minute. Right. And the goal is just to get up there and talk. And that's the improv section. Because, yes, there's prepared sections, but in networking, it's all improv. It's all responding to feedback, responding to questions. Conversation is all really improv. And then the meeting is evaluated. But it's just such a good environment to really work on your public speaking because where else can you work on your public speaking? Right. You've worked corporate. 95% of presentations are boring and people are like grabbing their coffee and you see the eyes roll back and it's like every job description says excellent communication skills. How many people do you actually know with excellent communication skills, right? Very few. It's not required for all jobs. I don't know why every single job description has it when there are very few people that could actually keep me awake when I'm tired in a corporate meeting.
So I guess what you're talking about really is how to engage people, how to deliver information, how to tell stories really at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Yeah, telling stories, it also allows you to find your style because I've seen people, right? The first speech is just to get up there and talk. Second speech is to really start working on a few aspects of public speaking. And as you go, you're going to see that people start developing your style. And I think it's a very safe environment because look, you mess up a Toastmaster speech, who cares? They're going to clap for you. You've had people cry. If you cry during your corporate presentation, you cry during an interview, look, most likely it's not going to work out for you. So it's like, look, it's a super safe environment. No one's going to judge you. The type of people to go to those types of meetings, they're proactive, they're friendly, they're there to help you. And it's like, it's a good way to sort of meet proactive people, make friends, and just improve yourself. So that's why it's like, I tell people, just check it out.
Why do we feel fear? Why do we feel the butterflies before an interview or a presentation or a speech?
Because we care. You know, I tell people, like, when, let's say you're going to go to your favorite restaurant, you don't have fear. You've done it. You know, you sort of know what to expect. Nothing's going to go wrong, right? When you wake up to brush your teeth, you don't fear brushing your teeth. It's something you've done so many times, right? Because you know, okay, I'm going to brush my teeth, whatever, it's going to take a few minutes. When you go to your friend's house, you don't fear anything because there's sort of, you have nothing to lose, right? But we fear because we care, right? What if it goes wrong? It's an evolutionary response, right? We have to have fear because if you weren't afraid of the lions and you walked up to one, you'd probably get eaten by one, right? We fear because there's natural reasons for why fear is necessary. But the thing is, in today's society, when you fear, it's not like how it was hundreds or thousands of years ago, where fear usually meant like, hey, I'm gonna die, right? Why do you fear heights, right? Because if you fall, you're gonna die or you're gonna get injured. Why do you fear these animals like snakes and stuff? Because if they bite you, you may get hurt. So we fear because of the negative consequences, because we care about the result. If you don't care about the result, then you really don't have no fear.
So if I have fear of a predator in nature, it's a healthy thing. It's
It's a
gonna
healthy
make me
thing.
react. If
Yeah.
I have fear before I'm getting on a stage, is that a
It's
healthy thing?
it's still healthy. There's nothing wrong with being like there's one of so I'm a big MMA fan. So one of my favorite fighters, one of the greatest fighters of all time is George St. Pierre. And one of the best fighters of all time. He still gets nervous before every fight. And he's a professional. This is what he does for a living. He's one of the best at it at all time, right? It's just a natural reaction. Right? It's okay. And what I tell people is physiologically, whether you're scared or excited, your body has the same response. Your heart rate's going up, you're sweating, right? Your face is getting red. So one trick I tell people is instead of telling yourself, I'm nervous, I'm scared, just say, hey, I'm excited. It's a little psychological trick that you can use to sort of, you have a presentation. You're like, look, I'm excited. That's why I'm sweating. I'm not sweating because I'm scared. And that really works for a lot of public speakers. So again, it's a healthy reaction. Just make sure it doesn't stop you. If you have a speech, it doesn't stop you from doing the speech, right? Kind of use it and say it's okay. It's a natural reaction, but that shouldn't stop you from doing what you want to do.
So you mentioned MMA. I know that you're a former wrestler. How has that sport helped you in your life?
Dude, because the thing with wrestling is you got to put in the work. Like it's a very unforgiving sport, right? I see kids who are very talented, but like you can't miss practice. Like when I went in like 2 years, I missed like 2 practices one time because I had the SAT. Look, there were days I missed school, but I showed up to practice. Right? Because that's what it is. It's like, look, you got to show up. You got to put in the extra work. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's you and your opponent. You can't really blame somebody else. Like, yeah, team sports, you can say, oh, this guy missed a shot. This guy missed the ball. Wrestling is an individual sport. And there's nothing worse than a loss because then it's like, look, I didn't do enough. Or I worked so hard and this guy's still that much better than me that I couldn't do anything. So it's a super humbling sport. And you know what? You just learn so much. The culture is so good. And it's all about technique because a lot of people think, yeah, you got to be the strong, but you'd be surprised that a lot of it's like technique. It's like repetition, doing the same move thousands of times, practicing. So that's what like it really humbled me. Like wrestling, like I went to wrestling camps and everything. And it was just like, look, work, work, work. You got to be smart about it. You got to be strategic about it. And that's why I love the sport. And that's why I'm an assistant wrestling coach because that sport changed my life. And I'm the assistant wrestling coach I'm actually going to go today. My former head coach, like he's a good friend of mine. Like that dude changed my life. And he's super stubborn and it's kind of funny in certain aspects, but it's like he showed me that's what really got me confidence because it was like, look, I could do this, man. I could freaking, I used to lose lots of weight in a short amount of time. I used to do crazy runs. It just shows like it's a sport that breaks you, right? But it builds you back up.
I see Muhammad Ali behind you.
Dude, yeah, I have Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. I love them.
Smoking Joe.
Smoking Joe. I went to Philadelphia and I took a picture next to the statue. I didn't see the Rocky statue because the Rocky
I've
statue,
seen that.
Joe Frazier is the Rocky. That guy is the man.
Yeah. Muhammad Ali said it best. He said,
Yeah,
flow like a butterfly, sting like a bee, right?
Yeah, and he also said that Joe Frazier brought out the best in him. The thing is about these sports is like Muhammad. I forgot.
Frazier was a champ. He was a champ from early 70s, right?
Yeah, the thing is when Muhammad, so he gave Ali his first loss. So I think both were undefeated, or I'm not sure if Frazier, but he gave Ali his first loss. And you know what? Like, I love Ali, but Ali deserved that loss, because like I love Frazier too. He just has like, you read his life story. So he used to play he lived on a farm, and one day he was like, I'm gonna be a boxer. And his family like sort of laughed at him, and he just like did the bag, would punch the bag. And I think one day he like poked like a hog with a stick or something, and it like injured him. So he's known for his left hook, and he'd always keep it in a certain position because he couldn't straighten it out. So that he was known for his left hook. So it's just like, I don't know, boxing, like the combat sports is just different. I think when Ali, one of the fights that he fought him, Joe Frazier's corner stopped the fight because he's like, yo, Joe, you're done. And Ali was in the corner and Ali was about to not come out. Ali was like, that's the closest he ever felt to dying.
How did he beat Muhammad Ali?
Dude, so the thing is, Muhammad Ali, so Joe Frazier had a certain style. Muhammad Ali threw slow uppercuts. So there was a gap. If you realize when he knocked down Ali in the 14th round, Ali throws a lazy uppercut. So he throws it, it leaves him open, and Joe throws this mean left hook. And he was catching him with left hook, but that was the one where he knocked Ali down. But Ali is a beast in his own right because he gets hit with this mean left hook, and he's like, he just gets up like, this guy hit me, So, these guys are just warriors, and, so I don't think there was anybody that was beating Joe Frazier that night. Like, he just showed up that day.
Well, I mean, so much of winning is a mind game.
It is. I mean, that's what Ali was known for. A lot of people say like, oh yeah, it was like most people lose to Ali before they're in the ring, right? Like this guy freaking fought the U.S. government, and he won the Supreme Court case. It's like that guy, I don't know. There's like one thing, even if someone may be physically superior to him, this guy had like an unwavering belief in himself, because think about it, back in the day, he was like, look, he's this black dude who says, look, I'm beautiful, I'm pretty, I hate you guys. And then it's funny because there were a lot of governors and senators at the time, obviously after he was known as a hero for the Vietnam War, but during that time, a lot of people, they hated him. If you read his book, they talk about how much they hated him. They hated seeing him win because he was just like a rejection. He rejected the modern constructs of society. He rejected the modern constructs of beauty, that he was this cocky guy who wasn't supposed to be cocky, right? He wasn't supposed to be that. And he did it. And he was like, look, I'm not listening to anybody. And that's why I love him. Just like so inspirational. And if you read about him, it's just like he always gave autographs. Like I actually personally know someone in one of my networking groups. He used to sell sports memorabilia. He found the Golden Glove shorts for Muhammad Ali. He met Muhammad Ali and he's like, hey, can you sign this Cassius Clay? Because that was his name at the time before he changed it. And he was like, he did it. No issues. Like, some people might have got offended, but he was super nice to his fans. And I think, the fact that he was the greatest, but, he gave a voice to like those people who didn't have a voice. That's sort of like, yes, he was a boxer, but he like fought for life. He fought for like his people. And even then there was one time where he went to Iraq because Saddam had like 15 hostages and this guy went to Iraq and he got all 15 hostages released. Like the dude risked his life. That's what he did. So, that's why I'll always have immense respect for him.
And how did he do that?
He's just Muhammad Ali, man. He just negotiated, talked to his, it's crazy. He ran out of his arthritis, the Parkinson's med. So he couldn't stand and stuff. He still showed up to the press conference and then they got some emergency thing and he just like talked to Saddam. And I think like Muhammad Ali is one of the few athletes that's like a global icon. When he died, it was like crazy. Like he could go to any country. He could go to Africa. He could go to Bangladesh. He could go to Korea. Like everybody loves it. It's because like this dude in the pinnacle of his career, he gave it up and he said, look, I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. And regardless of whether you agree with him or not, that's super respectable. And it's like, because there's so many times where it's like, you're at this point where you could do so much. And he did it. Like he did what a lot of people are too scared to do. And he was broke. Like he couldn't fight. He couldn't do this because what a lot of people did was they got on medical leave for the draft saying like, hey, I can't go because my foot hurts or I have this, or they flee the country. They go to Canada. They go to other countries. He's like, look, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. I'm going to say no to you. I'm going to fight it. And what a lot of people don't get is that it's not that he wasn't afraid to die. It's just that because he was a famous boxer, he would never step foot on the battlefield because they would have had him either sell war bonds or do exhibitions for the troops. But he's like, look, I'm not going to fight for a country that doesn't respect me. I'm not, because a former boxer, Joe Louis, he was also a heavyweight champ. When he fought, he got drafted. What he did was he did exhibitions for the soldiers. He would get paid for those exhibitions. Now, the issue was black soldiers couldn't attend. So he used all the money from that so the black soldiers could attend his exhibitions. Now, what happened is the government was really unfair to him. The IRS came hounding him years later. They're like, look, that money you donated was taxable income. You got to pay taxes on him. And he saw how like the guy who was supposed to do for his country got thrown to the side. So he's like, look, I'm not doing it. And he got so many deals where they're like, look, his mom and the Nation of Islam was like, look, just say yes, just make it easy. He's like, no. They gave him deals like, hey, look, just say you're sorry, we'll work out a deal. And he said no. He had a sweetheart deal and he still said no because he's like, look, publicly I gotta do this.
I mean, that's a cause. I mean, I think that the theme here is really, fighting for a cause. And I think what's really inspirational about your story is that you're fighting for a cause, and there's this audience and there's this group of people out there. There's tens of millions of people like that in the States alone.
Yeah.
And they need a voice. And I feel like this idea that you got to do X, which is to go get the university degree and you got to get that piece of paper in order to show up in this club, that whole idea is old school now. It doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. Now it's about the school of hard knocks life. life. It's about experience. It's about doing the matches and doing the fights and being on the stage and being in that rink and just putting in the effort.
Yeah, like my ultimate goal with No Degree is to remove the stigma attached to people without college degrees. Because I'm having someone on my podcast and she's a very successful entrepreneur. She has a podcast marketing company, and she was like, throughout her life, she always struggled because she was successful, but she was like, oh, should I go back to, get this piece of paper? And then eventually she came to a point that was, hey, I'm successful. I don't need this. I want people to realize that much earlier. I don't want people to feel like, because a lot of people have that, like, oh, I didn't go to this school, or I didn't go to this level, I'm not smart. And it's like, look, I want to change that. I want to change the way people view themselves, and I want to change the way others view them.
That's a hell of a cause, man. I'm on board, and I want to support in any way I can. My pitch to folks out there that want to present themselves, to get a foot in the door, if you will, is to record a pitch video, do a screen video, do a walkthrough of a resume or something that you've created, something that you've done, and get that in front of your seekers. And, and do that 100 times. And, Dub is we have a completely free option where you can actually integrate a direct video, a screen video, a webcam video, phone video, and then you can email that to someone. It takes just a couple of seconds to do. I'd love to see as many people as possible to start to do that, because I use it every day. I've seen tens of thousands of people use it, and it works wonders when you can get your best, truest, most authentic self in front of a person and not have to go through that chase.
No, and you have a good video, because I know when I signed up for this meeting, you had and I watched it. I was like, wow, this is good. And it's like, I already know a little more about you before we even talked. I was like, oh, that's cool. And you know what? I definitely got to use it, because I get asked a lot of people on LinkedIn send me messages, and it's like, dude, just read my profile. They ask, like, what do you do? And it's like, mine is so easy. Like, mine is a one-liner. Like, it's not like convoluted. So I got to use, Dub to create a video. That's what I was planning on doing. Just creating one video, be like, hey, you asked me what I do, so here's what I do. And just give them like the 2 to 3 minute spiel, because I've answered that question way too many times.
One of my other visions for basically everyone in the business world is to have a video calendar page like the one that you saw for me. That is honestly it's not a secret anymore, but that's my MVP. It's the most important asset that I have. It saves me hours every single day, because people, get to know me, I build trust, and then they book a time right in that calendar. It's free. I want you to set it up, and I want everyone out there to sign up for Dub and sign up for Calendly, both on the free accounts. You don't need to pay to get that set up, and get yourself a video calendar page, because it will change your life.
Dude, you know what? I'm going to do it. I need it, because I've just been putting it off, and it's like, dude, even the mental energy of answering a question that you answered 100 times, right? You lose, even though it's quick, it's just that mental energy. And it's like, you want to free, like, I'd rather spend the 2 minutes just doing something else, right?
Well, my other secret is that I have a video for every single aspect of the business. I have my investor pitch video. I have my press pitch video. I've got my sales video. I've got my podcast.
You got it.
I have probably 30 videos that I use on a daily basis.
No, and it's good, because it's like, now you're not sending. I'm pretty sure you send those videos each like at least 20 to 50 times. But 20 to 50 times, that's 600 times that you saved yourself, right? Just minus the 30 that you recorded it. But, that's hundreds of times that you don't have to do something, but you're still doing it, right? You took up upfront cost and time and investment to get those videos out, but now it's like forever.
Yeah, exactly, man. Cool, man. NoDegree.com. Exciting. Where can we find you on social?
So LinkedIn is the best way.
Yeah.
Search up my name, Jonaed, Jonaed. I'm the only Jonaed out there for with my spelling. So if you search up the NoDegree.fm is my podcast site. I'm on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, a whole bunch of other platforms. NoDegree.com is my content site. But right now I'm really focusing on the podcast, because a lot of people have been so much easier to consume a lot of content in a short amount of time while you're still living your life and not having it impact you in a podcast. So that's why it's like, I've been really focusing on that. But people could straight up email me the letter J. So J@nodegree.com if they really want to, and I answer emails.
Done. And then is there an asset or some sort of a guide or an ebook or a blog post that you might recommend that we can include in the show notes here in the caption?
No, not anything specific, only because everybody has something different that they're looking for. So I'm not going to send a welder article to everybody. I'm going to say, look, just check out the site. I would say the asset that I would say, if you have an interview, episode 3. So how to prepare for an interview. I would say that's probably my most influential episode, because everybody's interviewing, and a lot of the tips are very good. So I would recommend episode 3. So I'll include the link to that. I'll send you the link to that.
Cool. So NoDegree.fm, episode 3. That's good for kind of job seekers. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Junaid, man, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate the time, and I'm inspired, man. I love your cause, and it's amazing to connect.
No, amazing to talk to you, and I loved it. I loved it, man. So, like I said, good luck with your company. And like I said, people get on dub, get on video. It's gonna very few people get on video, so it's like if you're one of the few people on video, and even if you do it okay, you're better than everyone else, right? It's just
Exactly.
that it's that simple.
Well, here we are on video. And in fact, I think an interesting stat that I learned recently is that only 1% of the people on LinkedIn actually post
Yeah,
content on a recurring
yeah,
basis. So if you want to stick out of the crowd,
yeah.
post,
And the
create
thing
content,
is,
share videos.
and I tell people, comments are a form of content. So even if you're commenting and just being a helpful person, again, you're part of that 1%.
There it is. Comments below, guys. Thanks so much. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, Ruben.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.